Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow. I'm Bobby Special K Kinzer.
And I am Thomas Doty.
And we are the FITT Show. Thank you for tuning in as always, our virtual world. This is another great day, Dote. I'm pumped up. I'm excited. I'm so fired up. Dote, you know why I'm fired up, Dote?
Why?
Because this is our 47th show in a
wow.
row. We rolling. That's a lot of information, man. We've been dropping a lot of information. So we want to thank everybody who's been tuning in, all our regulars. Thank you. And new people come on every week, though. So we must be doing something right because people are hurting out there, though. I mean, the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, people were just I have so many friends just struggling financially. And most of it is because they made bad financial decisions. It wasn't that they lost their job. It wasn't like that they didn't have any income. It's just that they made some, just poor financial decisions. That's why we hope the FITT Show will help provide information for people that can help strengthen their finances and, become stronger with some of the decisions that you make.
And some of it is not bad decisions. Sometimes you just don't know. I look back on some of the things I've done in my life, and it was just lack of knowing. And that's what really we're trying to do is just provide information because a lot of little things people don't know when it comes to financing.
Interesting that you say that, though. There's a lot of surveys coming out these days about Black people and wealth. And one of the surveys said that Black people's shortcoming with wealth and the wealth gap widening has a lot to do about them just spending badly, which I thought was pretty interesting because a lot of people say, because last year one report showed that the Black American population spent $1.4 trillion. So you would think, they spend a lot of money, but it's not always, like you said, though, that people are spending a lot of money. It's just things are costing, especially with inflation getting ready to go up to double digits, and that's going to cost a lot of things. So as always, we like for you to click on the like button, the thumbs up, and the heart button. That gives us more access to people out there. That's how Facebook work, and YouTube is all about subscribing, and then they let more people in. So we just hope that y'all continue to do that, and remember to share this information. It's not just for you; it's for your family, your parents, and your friends. And remember, you're never too old. Never, ever, ever too old. You all. So make sure y'all take that in mind. Dope. Tonight, we want to talk about interesting subject, which has to deal about the three financial phases of life. And a lot of people think that has to do about age, but actually it really doesn't, because everybody is at different places about that. But before we get into that, Dope, let's get the stock market update, which everybody loves or hates.
Well, it's been crazy. It's been a lot of ups and downs in the market, and with the last couple of months, it's been pretty stagnant. Just a lot of volatility, which is to be expected in these crazy times with a war, inflation, pandemic. So it's funny when you look at the past week, the Dow is actually up 1%. I mean, it's up about 300 points week to week. Well, the Nasdaq is down about 1%. It's down about a couple hundred points. And some of the stocks I follow, they've all been pretty flat. Microsoft has been at 280. It was 280 last week. It's 281 today, so it's up just a tad. And Bob and I often joke about buying buying opportunities. I think I've told you guys I own about 600 shares of Microsoft, but I told myself if it dropped below 280, I was going to buy a little bit more, and I did, about 50 more shares. And I just, I think that's for me, that's just a good buy at 280. I just see that as a long-term good stock to have. Tesla had a nice little run. They reported earnings, and their earnings were much, much greater than they were a year ago. I think they were like 7 times higher than they were a year ago. They're kind of on a good little roll right now. So in the last week, their stock is up about a little over 24 points. It's about a 2.4% increase. And again, it's been up and down with the rest of the market. Apple's pretty flat. A week ago it was 165. This week it's 168. And finally, my Pfizer has taken it on the chin. It dropped from 53 last week down to 49 today. And still decent dividend stock, but I'm hoping to see some growth in that one. So all in all, it's been another crazy week. I mean, just like today, the market was up huge this morning. And then it reacted to comments by the Fed about raising interest rates in May and consecutively, past May, and the market got spooked and lost its gain. And I think at one point Microsoft was up to 293 and it closed back at 281. So just another volatile day. And as we always tell you, to hang tight, pick good stocks, however you choose to do that, hang with them, and don't panic and sell while the market's going down. Not a good thing to do. What's going on in the crypto world, Bob?
Well, before I get into crypto, I just want to stay on the subject of the markets, because a lot of people probably ask the question, why is the Dow Jones up by 200 and something points, and why is the NASDAQ down by 600 points? Why is Standard & Poor's down by 1%, over 1%? And that's it, you all, because they have different stocks in those exchanges. Like the Dow Jones is 30. It's the top 30 industrial stocks in the world, if I'm right, though. No, excuse me, in DC, yeah. In America, excuse me. Correct, yeah. Thank you. Only 30. And that's why some people go to Standard & Poor's 500, because if you have a broader amount of stocks to measure, that gives you a little better measurement. And then the NASDAQ, usually the NASDAQ is heavily invested. Mostly the tech, a lot of the tech stocks are on the NASDAQ. So I don't know if that's why it's taking a hit, but just wanted to talk about that. But look, let me talk about cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency, we always talk about, me and Dope talk about how it's the long play. Now, some people like to jump in and out, but just remember this, it's the long play. And the more you give it time, the more you have chances of it being able to weather the storm. But cryptocurrency, last week, the market cap, which is important, the total market cap of cryptocurrency, which is over about 15,000, 16,000 cryptocurrency, was up to about $1.9 trillion. Now, 6 months ago, it was up to $2.7 trillion. So that tells you a lot. A lot of people jumped out. But that was last week at 1.95. But this week, the market cap for all cryptocurrencies at 1.98. The Bitcoin, last week I told you was $39,928. Today at 7 p.m., because remember, cryptocurrency is 24 hours, so it could be changed already. But it was at $40,785, down 1.8%. But it's still in the number one position of all cryptocurrency. And like last week, its market cap was at 759 billion, but this week it's at 775 billion. So people must be getting back in. Shiba Inu, with a lot of people, they call those meme stocks. It's really just a dog from I forgot where it's from. I think it's Germany. It's like they use it like baseball cards. It's just an image. But that's, a lot of people jumped on that when it became popular, and that's holding at the number 15 position, and it's down 2.4%. Last week it was at 000, that's 4025, and this week is at 00024. Then you have things like Ethereum, which is smart contracts, which, just mind y'all, the smart contract is a computer program or a transaction protocol, which is intended to automatically execute, control, or document legally relevant events and actions according to the terms of the contract. So it's supposed to be this is supposed to be helping with more trust, and because they have these contracts, it deals with fraud losses a lot better. It reduces the malicious and accidental exceptions. That's when you hear about smart contracts, which is Ethereum. And Ethereum today is, last week it was at $3,021. This week is at 3,000 and, is that right? Last week it was, yeah, right. Last week was 3,021. This week is at 3,000 and something like 10. So it's down. So cryptocurrency is jumping around, dope. But remember, we always tell you it's all about the long play. So, by the way, though, gold and silver is down, and it's kind of interesting because they usually say in these markets, gold would be and silver is like an inflation type of hedge. But they've been holding steady. Like gold is at $1,977 an ounce. No, I'm sorry. It's down. Last week it was $1,977 an ounce. This week is $1,953 an ounce. And silver's at $24 an ounce. So we always talk about diversification. That's why I give you information on those type of things. By the way, meat prices are up 15%, eggs are up 11%, milk up 4%, housing up 5%, and gas is up 50%, though. So, though, let's get into talking a little bit about our topic today, the 3 financial phases in life.
Yeah, and it's interesting. If you recognize where you are, then you can obviously plan better and hopefully be more effective in handling your assets, enjoy your assets better. And it doesn't matter what age you are. You just got to realize what phase you're in. That's what we'll talk about. I mean, think about it. Every year we see the same months, holidays, and seasons. It's all pretty predictable. And you don't know when storms are coming, but you know when it's going to get cold. And the same can be said for financial phases, where you are. It's not easy to predict what's going to happen, but you know there are patterns. Some people go crazy for Christmas and spend a whole lot of money around the holidays on gifts and for people they know or for themselves. In January, you're going to get cold weather. Your gas bill is going to be a little bit higher. Some people actually spend their money in the summer on vacations and enjoy that time. And so you could have patterns, and you just need to recognize those, and then you kind of save and spend based on those if you're really looking at it. If you're a recent college grad, you're probably on a tight budget with less savings. But if you're an established professional, you might be more focused on long-term goals, such as buying a house or saving for college or saving for retirement and those kinds of things. So it's not the same for everybody. Everybody's got their own taste and how they do things. And it can be similar. You can offer people can have the same patterns, but each individual has their own plans, their own priorities, their own habits that make them unique. If you enjoy saving, maybe you take vacations on off-peak times, take advantage of lower hotel fares and lower airfares if you go off-peak. Or like me, you sign up for a credit card, you try to make sure you get the most perks you can get. Or, you might try to pay your bills off faster. Anything to support your travel habit. And that's kind of what I do. I try to get the free rooms and all the free perks and save up for Christmas and birthdays or things of that sort. And so the same is true when you look at life patterns for saving and investing. If you get a well-paid job out of college, you spend more lavishly than a 20-something who doesn't have a good job, or someone who joined what's the FIRE stand for, Bob? The people who want to retire early. What's that acronym? FIRE?
Financial Independence Retirement
Oh,
retiring early.
yeah. There's a bunch of folks who plan on doing that. I think my youngest son is one of those. He doesn't plan on working, so he's doing what he can to generate a lot of assets so he can not work forever. And so those people might be heavy into contributing for retirement and save differently. So since they have different goals. So it's important that you understand what your goals are, what you're trying to do, what your priorities are, and then set your spending and budgets, things of that sort up, set them up so you can accomplish what you're trying to do. And it's another example where it's different for everybody. Everybody got different priorities. Some people have a bunch of kids, some people have no kids. Some people believe in paying for all their kids' college. Some people say no, if they want to go to college, they'll figure it out themselves. So you have to figure out what your particular situation is, and then it'll make more sense when we talk about what phase, we talk about those three phases.
Yeah, though, that's important. But one of the most important things is, how does knowing this help you? Um, it's first of all, I just want to say we got a lot of information from the Kiplinger report today that we're using, so we like to thank them for their information. But though knowing the patterns can help you plan for the future. It's so important because these phases happen. And if you really step back and look at them, you can identify these phases when they happen. It's like, if you flying home and you buying a bunch of gifts for Christmas and you flying home and your pride is high and you pumped up, you can plan ahead. Plan ahead. If you do this annually, plan ahead and only eat, cut back on entertainment just in a few months in advance. Because when you know something happens annually that you want to enjoy to the fullest and not worry about the cash flow, set it up in a budget. Find fun ways to be able to do it beforehand. A lot of people let the things pop up on them, and next thing you know, they're panicking because they in debt and they knew some of these. Now, you can't plan for all of them, but there are phases that recur annually, quarterly, monthly. For example, if you you have happy hour with your friends every week, maybe offer to host the happy hour at your house for 1 month, and rotate who brings the drinks and the appetizers each week. You can spend 1 month and easily save a lot of money and spend 1 week, just having things under control. And you take the time to write down important things to you. I don't think we put enough things pen to paper, though. I'm talking about even if you put it on a napkin, when you put it down, you can see the picture. The picture becomes bigger, both annually, and then the bigger picture is a great starting point. Some of these items have regularly occurring dates, like holidays, birthdays. You can build specific timelines of what you need to focus on for saving. Sometimes there's unplanned events like weddings, concerts. I know a bunch of my friends. I have a friend, ex-co-worker, she goes always to concerts. But if you can find ways to save all year round, you can have a sturdy fun waiting for you just when you need it. Now, of course, you can only build the fund after you have a solid emergency savings fund. So, what phase are you in? Now, the economic phase you're in isn't necessarily tied to your age. It really doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your age, as many people assume. But studies have uncovered phases that actually reflect where you are in life, which is split into 3 phases: build and grow, number 1; phase 2, transition, number 3; distribute and deploy. So, assessing your stage and adjusting your plan should be an ongoing process, but you can only know the phase you are in after you articulate your goals.
Yeah, and Bob, it's like you said, age doesn't have to necessarily make a difference. If you got a 35-year-old who's planning to retire early and a 68-year-old who's a late saver for retirement, they both can be focused on their transition into retirement. You know,
Right.
and they're almost 35 years different in age. So it's what you're trying to do that really sets it up. So let's start talking about those three phases. The first is to build and grow. And that's when you decide on your long-term goals and you plan for them. If it's saving for retirement. If that's the case, then obviously maximizing your contributions to a 401k plan. You know, we talked about that. And if you're young, and you know, we've discussed this in previous shows, the most important thing you can do is fix your standard of living. And it happens to most people as they make more money, they elevate their standard of living. But that's I mean, that's fine. You know, you can convince yourself that you deserve it, that you've worked hard for it, but it's just harder to get ahead when you do that. It's much more efficient. Is every time you get a raise, you take half of it and put it away. I mean, because if you think about it, you were living on what you were making before, and you get a raise, and then once it gets into the paycheck, it becomes part of what you spend. But if you make a conscious effort that every time you get a raise, half of it goes to some sort of savings, and you just do that, that's going to increase how much you're going to have down the road. You know, you might decide you want to buy a house. That might be a priority. Then you got to figure out how much you need for a down payment, how much your mortgage is going to be, and other expenses. And that's another thing when you talk about not knowing. Most people think they buy a house and they just have to afford the mortgage. Well, anybody that has a house knows stuff breaks, and stuff always breaks when you least expect it. So when you decide to buy that house, make sure you got some money set aside because stuff do break. I don't care if you buy a new house. If you buy a new house, then you're paying a lot for first time things like decorating. If you buy an old house, you're paying to fix stuff. Either way, you're going to have other bills than your mortgage. Trust me on that. The important thing about the build and grow phase, and a lot of people don't actually do this, is it's also about protecting your future earnings. And this is when you look at life insurance. Now, a couple different types of life insurance. I don't profess to be a life insurance expert, and I've never believed in whole life insurance, which is the more expensive type that includes insurance and also an investment. When after I had 4 kids, sat down and looked at my financial situation, I determined how much money my family would need if I was to die. And it was the number was way bigger than I thought it would be, but I bought a term life insurance policy for $1 million, and I got it for 20 years and figured if something happens to me in the next 20 years, then there's $1 million left for my family to live on. And that's one way of protecting what you have. And something else people don't look at. My wife didn't work. She worked at home. And so when my kids were younger, something else I needed to think about was if something would happen to her, I would have to pay somebody to take care of my kids. And that's a pretty hefty fee also. So it's a matter of looking at your total picture, what you're going to need, and what needs to happen if something happens to someone who's contributing to your household, whether it's you or the person who's taking care of the kids. You have to make sure you have that covered. And again, this is something you need to talk to an insurance professional about. I never believed in mixing the insurance with my investment. That's what a whole life policy is. And I know I'm simplifying it. Again, I'm not trying to be an expert on it, but that's generally what it is. A whole life policy has a term portion and a investment portion, where a term policy is just insurance. So it's typically cheaper than a whole life policy. And that's what I did. I got a specific period of time. And another thing, while we're on this subject.
Hey, Joe, before you go to that, I want to share an interesting graph that I saw the other day. And this sums up as far as like when you talk about build and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So it said Black families are less likely to own assets. So if you look at the top two bars, brown bar, the top bar is black people, 44% are homeowners versus 71.9% are white people homeowners. Business owners, 6%, whites, 13.7. I thought that would be a further gap. But go down and look at other stocks, bonds, and mutual fund ownerships, meaning being in the stock market. There's only 6.5% of black people in the market versus 25.3% of white people. And then you look at, it's interesting, the traditional savings account, they almost close, 42.7% and 53% white people. But look at the 529 or health savings account, which you get tax advantages, and it's only 1% and 4.5% for white people. I just wanted to share those statistics, why build and grow is so important.
Wow, that's shocking to me. I'm surprised that it's only 25% for white people. I thought it would be higher. I guess you lose track of how many people are struggling. I mean, it's crazy. It's like 1/4. That's scary. That's kind of why we're doing what we're doing, why we're talking about what we're talking about. But in the realm of investing and build and grow, and we touched on this briefly, but I just wanted to bring up another investment opportunity, especially with inflation being what it is the I bonds. And there's a bunch of reasons why you buy I bonds, and I'm gonna run through a few of them. One is backed by the government, and the nominal value never decreases. If you buy a bond for $1,000, you're guaranteed to get at least $1,000, so it can never go below that. It pays interest, and this is where it gets interesting. The interest is made up of two components. You have a fixed rate, which is close to zero right now because everybody knows interest rates have been about zero, and then it has an inflation-linked rate, and that's pretty attractive right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. And that rate is reset every 6 months. So every 6 months it's adjusted. It's sold directly by the Treasury. You don't pay any fees. So it's not like stock. You don't have any broker fees. You can't buy them through a broker. You have to go online and buy it directly from the Treasury. But you pay no fees. There's no monthly service charges or anything like that. You don't pay state and local taxes on those. So it's not like other types of income where you have to pay your state. And see, down here in South Carolina, the marginal tax rate is about 7%. So that's a sizable savings when 7% you don't have to pay on that. From a federal income tax standpoint, you don't pay any taxes until you redeem the bond. So you don't owe taxes until you cash out. And so for someone who's retired like myself, if you have bonds, you can decide when you want to cash them if you need to adjust your income. If, for example, you'll know when you turn 65, you pay your Medicare bill based on your income. So if you want to play with your income, you can decide when to redeem bonds to affect your income. And there's also, you can get exempted from the federal tax if you use the money for a qualified educational expense. Okay, and that's the 529. If you move it straight into a 529 plan or that Coverdale type asset, and that's again something you need to talk to your tax professional about. But you can get it exempted from federal tax too. Those all are the reasons to buy a bond. And the current rate through April is 7.12%. So if you bought the bond up through April, that's the interest rate you'll get. In May, because this rate's adjusted every 6 months, and that 7.12% is from last November. In May, the rate's going to be close to 9.62%. It's not out. It'll be out officially on the 1st. But if you look at the indexes that they use a consumer price index with an urban adjustment, and the interest rate's probably going to be 9.62%, which is huge. No bank's paying anywhere near that. That's a huge return. Now, it's not all positive when you talk about I bonds. There's some reasons not to buy them. Couple things. That the purchase limits is 10,000 per person. That means if you're married, you can buy 20,000. And there's another little caveat that if you take your income tax refund and decide to buy bonds, you can do that up to 5,000. So theoretically, you can get up to 25,000 a year per household if you're married. The fixed rate portion has been basically zero because that's interest rates have been close to zero for a real long time. The interest is taxed as ordinary income. So as we always talk about, if you have a long-term capital gain, you get favorable tax rates. If you have dividends, you get favorable tax rates. But bonds, federally, assuming you aren't using it for education, is taxed as ordinary income. So you get no special tax breaks with that. Two more things that are a negative. You can't redeem it in the first 12 months. So you have to hold on for at least 12 months. And if you redeem in years 1 through 5, up to 5 years, you have to pay a 3-month interest penalty. Now, that being said, if you bought a bond today and you got 7.12%, and then you get the next adjusted rate of, let's say, 9.62, and you hold that bond for about a year, even if you pay the 3% penalty, your net interest rate will be something like 6 point something percent. So you're still doing way better than you would do in any savings account, CD. So think about that. That's a good way to build and grow, good way to save for college, and take a look at it.
Well, Modestine Johnson, one of our loyal viewers, she said, with bonds, we talked about I bonds.
Definitely I bonds.
And Robin Roberts, good friend Robin Roberts. We go back to 4 flats in a Cadillac. She said, is there that is also determined by your income, taxes paid on interest earned on the bond. Is that the only for Series E bonds? No, it's taxed by your ordinary income tax rate.
It's just added to your income. Yeah.
Yes. So it's added to your ordinary income. The federal.
Ordinary income. Yeah.
The federal.
There's no favorable tax. There's no long-term capital gain where you only pay a percentage of your growth, let's call it. So if you have $100 in bond interest, that's $100 added to your adjusted gross income or to your income as ordinary income. So there's no tax privileges federally with interest from I bonds.
So, want to give a shout out to our viewers as we always do. Man, we got a lot of people on. And like I told you, we got Modestine Johnson. We got one of our regulars, Joanne Skinner, my wonderful sister, Nolia Melton, Jordan Sproul, who has a wonderful baby. I forgot how many months old she is now, but definitely Jordan. It's like my goddaughter. Maddie Ford, Daisy Lady T. Irby from the FDIC. What's up? What's up, my girl? And then we got Aaron Webster and one of the most prolific Toastmaster speakers in, not even in the country, internationally, is Kitty Cheney. Kitty Cheney is with the FDIC, been in insurance and research for some years. Just a wonderful wealth of information. Wonderful. Hey, Renee, what's going on? McFadder, another FDIC. And then we have the community affairs guru, Miss Tina Queen on, and my wonderful good friend Tanya McKillery. What's up? Good to see you. And look, though, we got a new viewer, Linda Washington Douglas. God, man, all y'all FDIC people coming out here know all this information. That's good stuff. What's up, Linda? Good to see you, girl. Yeah, she said, teach. FDIC taught us well. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. My good buddy Calvin Drakeford out there, Louise Spriggs, Robert Lawson, We got a bunch of people out there today. Rodney Madison. Rodney Madison has those mortgage notes. She's got a wonderful program for mortgage notes, man. So just thank everybody for watching. So don't I want to transition. That's a play on words.
No
From,
pun intended.
from buy and grow to transition. Okay. And during this phase, it's important that you understand what you built during your years for savers. Now, a lot of people do not pay attention to that because it's important. It's also the time where you figure out how you want to live once you decide to leave full-time employment. Working with a financial advisor on your financial goals and assessment is important to project how well you've saved. It's always good financial advice from a professional who does this every day, and preferably one that is certified. Now, if you haven't done, you need to do a budget. Now, this budget is like a transition budget too now. This budget is not just a normal budget that you've been doing every day while you work, and you need to think about what the budget is going to be like when, you leave out. Know what you would need to live off of. So if you haven't done that budget, you need to do that now. Now, during this phase is an important factor in possible moves. Do you want to stay in your house, downsize, or even upgrade? These are the kind of things we need to start thinking about. Are there plans to buy a second home, travel, because you're going to have more time, might be doing more things. It's critical to assess how much risk you are taking in your portfolio, because this is the time, the transition period is really to really have a good plan for protecting your assets, as Dote said. If something big happens in the market, it could be terrible, and you can lose large amounts of money and delay your plans to make this transition. So it's so important that you really identify. Now, some people don't. You read different measurements. They say 4 times your salary, your last salary, 10 times your salary. But you know how you spend. Once you do a budget, that's going to help you determine how well you save or how much more money you're going to need to save. It's so important. We talk about that all the time, a budget and setting those goals.
Yeah. And finally, let's say everything works according to like you want it to work. You get to the distribute and deploy phase. And in this phase, you talk about how you're going to pull out your assets to use them, let's say in your retirement or whatever you've been saving for. And this is another situation where you have to get some expertise involved, because there are a bunch of blunders you can make if you don't do this right, from tax consequences to wills and estate problems. And if you have a sizable amount at this point, you need to get some help and get somebody to help you figure out how to do that the right way. And hopefully you'll be at this point where you got a lot of money. You're thinking about how to leave it or who to leave it to or what your legacy is going to be, and if you're going to give it to charities, if you're going to give it to your kids, and what you're going to do with it at the end. If you plan, lay out what you want to happen, what you want to happen will happen. But you have to have it in place. You have to have something set up so you know what's going to happen. And if you do have a plan, you're going to probably have positive results. And the better you can articulate your goals and decide what you're trying to do and live within that and stick to it, that increases your likelihood of achieving your goals. And another important thing when you get to this point is don't make sure you pay attention to what fees you're paying, because fees can beat you up on your retirement portfolio. And typically there's 3 basic types of fees. Either your financial advisor is charging you a flat fee, and bear in mind that typically goes down with the amount of assets that you have. So if you have assets in 3 or 4 different places, it might behoove you to have them all in one place. But some people don't like to have all their eggs in one basket, so they like to have 2 or 3 different pools of money. The other situation, if it's not a flat fee, they usually sell you things that they charge fees on. So you have to make sure you have somebody that you trust that is just not churning your account to generate fees for themselves. And finally, there's variable annuities, which I know nothing about, and I've never invested in them. I can't say whether it's a good investment or bad, because when I sat down and heard a spiel about one, it just made no sense to me. So I never invest in things I don't understand. And so that's one I don't mess with. Bottom line, make sure you know what your fees are, make sure you know what you're paying for, and make sure you know how your advisors are getting paid, and make sure it works for you. And if you're using mutual funds, that's great because of the diversification involved. But again, pay attention to the fees on that perspective. They all tell you what their fees are. There's no relationship between fee charge and performance. So it's just a matter of picking a good mutual fund and make sure it's a low fee. That's the best advice I can give you on that.
Latanya McKillary said, can you all talk about health savings account, HSA? The health savings account. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, and I want to say, I'm not sure they don't vary by company. I know in ours, you could put X amount of money away and you could use it for all your medical issues. And it was easy to do when I had 4 kids and myself and my wife spending money, because I could be sure that I would spend all the money. But I think it's a little tougher. I look at my kids' situation. They have those accounts and they have to estimate what they're going to spend. And it gets a little tough because typically they don't get sick that much. And I say that, then my son got hit with I think he tore a shoulder muscle or something and had a big bill. But it gets a little tough when you have to estimate what you're going to spend. And most of those accounts are use it or lose it. I don't think you can roll those over. At least you couldn't when I was working. I don't know if that's changed or not. So again, it's like everything else. You got to sit down and figure out how much you think you're going to spend. And at the end, if we ever had money left, we were buying like contact lens solution or buying extra contacts, extra glasses to make sure we use it all. But any of those tax advantaged accounts that you can use and make use of, it makes sense to utilize those to the fullest. I mean, it's a company benefit that you can take advantage of that has tax savings for you. So I strongly recommend it, even though you have to be pretty good at guessing what you're going to spend on those accounts.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, though. But if you know, once again, phases of financial, 3 phases of financial in life, 3 financial phases, and you know that you got a lot of medical bills, then more than likely you can come a little bit, you're a little bit more apt to come up with a number that you can estimate, because if your family, some families just what they call it though, just accident, prone.
But it's kind of crazy. It's one of those things. And we don't do enough of this. Is asking people, talk to people who have been through what you're about to go through. I wish I had. I remember when my 2 oldest kids got braces when they were very, very young. And the line that the guy threw on me was, "Oh, if you get them now, they won't need them when they're older." Well, that was bullcrap, because they needed them when they were older too. So I ended up paying for them twice.
Right.
But little things like that, ask somebody who's been through in any money situation. Talk to somebody who's successful, who's been through what you're about to go through, and get information. Bob always talks about information is the key. Talk to people who've been through what you're about to go through and what they spent money on it. And once I knew my kids were going to need braces, I could put more money away to cover that cost, because they're crazy expensive. I think we had them for all 4 kids. But again, I wish I had known about if you do it now, you won't need it later. They didn't get me with the second 2, but they did with the first 2.
Robin Roberts told us, though, that the health savings account is different. You can keep it forever, but you have to have you got to have a high deductible health insurance. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Thank you, Robin, for that information. Really appreciate that. Yeah, just want to holler out there to Tom Porter, man. Haven't seen you in a while. Hey, Robin, say hello to Greg for me, too. So, dope. It brings us to that time on the clock on the wall. Let's go with our summaries and takeaways.
Okay, you're first.
Cool. One of our first takeaways, dope, is everyone's money habits are different. Understand yours. And in other words, don't bull crap yourself. It's this thing called what is it called? Confirmation bias. And people try to convince themselves to do stuff. Don't be bull jiving yourself. Be honest with yourself. Everyone's habits are different. Don't be looking at somebody over next door, somebody over the next door on the other side. No, be honest with yourself and put this stuff down on paper. Understand your money habits because that's what it's all about. It's all about mindset.
Yeah, and plan and prepare for large purchases. If you know you go crazy at Christmas, start putting money away for Christmas and cut down on something else if you always know you're going to spend that crazy money at Christmas or birthdays or whatever that large purchase is. If you know it's coming, plan for it so you aren't spending in the next year paying off a big debt.
Listen to this one very carefully, everyone. Make sure you have saved for the way you want to live. Plain and simple. If you want to live a certain lifestyle, I mean, look, y'all, this is, 1 + 1 = 2. So it's all about mathematical, but then there's exponential growth where you can invest in compound interest is the name of the game, where your interest make interest and compound dividends, where you reinvest the dividends that you make. That's how you can increase your savings to be able to live the lifestyle that you want. And you got to take some risks. We're not talking about, bet the whole house on it and bet your life savings. But, you got to make sure that you're saved for the way you want to live.
Yeah. Deploy your finances effectively to ensure your money goes where you plan for it to go. That said, once you get to the end, hopefully you have some assets that you need to have distributed once you're no longer with us. And that's a tough one to talk about. We've talked about this before. Nobody likes to talk about their own death, but it's important that you do that to make sure your money goes where you want it to go. Otherwise, you get lawyers involved and they get paid, and what you want to happen may not happen.
Though a lot of people do not like to talk about the final um, costs for those final days. And the sooner you have that conversation, the better you can get it over with and you can understand what that person wants. Because let me tell y'all, I mean, I done been to so many funerals in the last month, and I mean, it's young and old. So you never know the day. So I'm telling you tonight, you need to have that conversation or tomorrow or by this weekend. Because I don't know why folks, especially black folks, hate to talk about it, but you got to talk about it. And lastly, though, no matter what financial phase you are in, planning and preparing for the next step will always yield positive results. Always. No matter. The better you calculate your goals, which we always talk about, for both the short and the long term, the more likely it becomes you can achieve them. This is plain and simple knowledge, you all. So meet today. So just want to go back over the 3 phases of financial, the 3 financial life phases: build and grow, transition, and distribute and deploy. It's those buckets, and put it down on paper, you all, because a lot of people try to hold this stuff in their head and it just crystallizes when you put down. Like, thank all the people who's like actually clicking on the like button and the heart button. We really appreciate it because that increases our viewership when you do that. And if you're on if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. and share this information, you all. We can't say that enough with other people because that's how we can make sure that all boats are floating and all people should be at least financial independent. And it doesn't matter if it's a election that a Democrat win or Republican. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic. If you manage your personal money correctly, it doesn't matter if it's a tsunami. It doesn't matter if there's any catastrophe because you'll be able, no one can plan events, but you can at least be able to prepare yourself for the shock that may hit you, but it won't just knock you down. And remember, I was saying, if you're digging a hole, if you're in a hole, don't get a shovel, get a ladder. So with that, thank you all for checking us out. Oh man, we got a bunch of people. My man Jay Drury. What's up, Jay? In the house with furniture and a jacuzzi. But anyway, any final? You good?
I'm good. And we talk about sticking to your plan and knowing where you want to be at the end. You might have to sacrifice some things early on to get to where you want to be at the end. That's the tough one. It's easy to talk about what you're going to have at the end, but usually it takes sacrifice to get there.
Hey, Kenny One Shot Tracy said, "Amen. I'm gathering all my beneficiaries tomorrow to finalize my plans." Way to go. Way to go. That's what it's about. Be proactive, you all. So once again, I want to thank everybody for viewership. And we're here next week. Same bat channel, same bat place. The FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow, 8 p.m. every Thursday, Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you all, and may the peace